Hey everyone, welcome to Talent Alchemy and to the fifth episode of the Open Skills Ecosystem Partner Series. And today I'm really excited to welcome two fantastic guests from Lightcast, a company that many of you know for its powerful labor market and skills intelligence data that helps organizations understand the relationship between skills, job, work intelligence, and the evolving world of work. So joining me today are Janice Burns and Jason Bartush. Janice is a well known human capital strategist, a futurist, actually, who has spent decades helping organizations rethink their talent, skills, and workforce transformation. And she's leading Lightcast Workforce Transformation Services. And Jason is part of the leadership team, helping drive Lightcast strategy to help organizations design skills powered workforce models. Janice and Jason, welcome to Talent Alchemy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to host you both. Together, you both bring a powerful combination of strategy, data, and real world transformation experience. One, you both to introduce your role at Lightcast and, what talent intelligence means to you. Janice, we can start with you.
Sure, thank you. So, my role at Lightcast is heading up a consulting practice under a company name of Skill Collective, which is a Lightcast company that we were acquired by Lightcast in September. And the consulting practice focuses on strategy and transformation related to skills transformation and workforce transformation. And with that, our practice is comprised of a lot of practitioners who've been in this skills transformation space for a long period of time. I have been a what I call skills enthusiast for over a decade, starting at MasterCard. And really, our goal is to help simplify the path towards skills intelligence, skills excellence for organizations.
You are quite a leading name in the HR tech industry. I know we haven't interacted in person yet, but I have heard a lot about you and your work, especially around the learning transformation.
Well, thank you. When people say they've heard a lot about me, it makes me a little scared because I don't know
Those are
what
good
they've
things.
heard. I have
Speaking of your alter ego,
I started to say I have an alter ego called the disruptive JRB. So I'm not sure if that's the one you've heard about.
Yeah, yeah. Jason?
yeah, so I'm Jason Bartush. I work at the same organization as Janice, as you can imagine. My day job is helping the organization oversee and grow our business relative to how we can deliver better products and services. As Janice mentioned, and really the answer to your question, Ricky, around talent intelligence, I would say that Lightcast, if we fit into a segment, the segment is talent intelligence. And that is that Lightcast organizes information about the world of. We position that information on the enterprise side to help employers make informed people decisions. When we think about organizations making change or thinking about facilitating change throughout the workforce, a lot of times they're looking at internal data to help facilitate and understand what's happening inside their own workforce. But the reality is organizations don't exist within a vacuum. And what happens outside the four walls of their organization is going to influence and impact the strategies that they deploy from a people perspective. What Lightcast offers is that perspective. What's going on outside the four walls of our organization in all the regions and countries that we employ people? And how are those external factors going to influence our talent strategy plans?
Yeah, yeah. And Lightcast is a well-known name in the talent intelligence space. A lot of our other open skill ecosystem partners, they all actually use, most of them, not all, use your IP. So how would you describe Lightcast core capabilities in the talent intelligence and especially the skills data space?
So one quick thing, and I'll let Janice answer as well. So
Okay.
part of my day job is I oversee all of our strategic partnerships. So on the one hand, to your point, Ricky, we've got about 200 kind of education technology and HR technology builders, right, that are building software to help organizations better manage their people. In that vein, we serve and partner with those organizations, and they're licensing data from Lightcast to build better products and services to provide more insightful information so their users can take better actions or make better decisions in the flow of work and at the point of decision. Separate from kind of that OEM model, which is kind of the way that I refer to it internally, we have a series of channel partners, right? Which is where SAP fits. And so for SAP, we have an integration that interfaces directly with Talent Intelligence Hub and Job Profile Builder. We essentially have developed a co-pilot that helps employers build, benchmark, and maintain skill profiles for all of the jobs that make up their job catalog. Where Janice and our team approach comes in is we've sort of paired technology with services. Organizations, despite the best of intentions,
Mhm.
change comes very difficult. And just because I've highlighted and prioritized the core and critical skills that we've worked with an organization to identify as critical to the future needs of the organization, it doesn't mean that they will facilitate or operationalize that data in the right way to facilitate and achieve the change that they're trying to deliver across the organization.
Mhm.
It's because of that that we've developed a team that's led by Janice and a number of other folks that are really helping organizations understand what does it look like to deploy change at this scale? What is the best practice way to think about how we start to make a shift within our workforce to embrace some of this data and change the way that we had been doing things, sometimes decades?
That's an interesting point. Definitely, you have established yourself as the leading provider for the global labor market data, the skills ontology. Janice, I would love to hear about the transformation efforts that also your team is leading and how you are actually helping those your customers to be a skills-based organization.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you know, Rinky, there's been a real evolution on this topic of skills. In 2021, we were kind of introduced to the concept and by Deloitte and the World Economic Forum. And in 2020, I would say 4, we started to see real momentum, but still people were thinking of skills as a trend, a fad, something that would go away. And now we're seeing real progression in how people are thinking about and using skills. And the reason that we see people really focusing on skills is that they're beginning to understand that the world that we operate in today can't just operate on data alone, but on orchestration of how work actually happens. And skills helps to be that currency that provides that orchestration, right? And as Jason talked about, it's one thing to work with a company that can help you aggregate your own skills data, make sense of your own skills data, analyze your own skills data. The beauty of Lightcast is that it can also bring in market data and other labor data so that you can compare, you can benchmark, you can understand kind of where you fit. What my team does is to help organizations understand the why and the how. So, one of the things that I found very early on when I was doing this work is a lot of companies start their skills journey because either it's the new thing to do,
New shiny thing.
it's a new shiny thing. An executive has said, we want to be skills based. And so they start, or some tech provider has shown them their shiny new product and promised them the world. And so they go down this path. And what they forget to do is to understand what's the real business problem that they're trying to solve and the business outcomes that they want to achieve by going down this path and then how to orchestrate that in a way where they're thinking about what we call the transformation triangle mindset about how people think about work, tool set about how we enable that work to happen, and skill set in terms of how work actually gets done. And what our team does is to help them work within that triangle to understand the why, the problem that they're trying to solve, and the how, so that we set them up for success versus set them up to start and then stall, which happens when you don't really take a strategic approach.
Right. And I think that's very important because, like you said, I was actually in a webinar this morning and we were discussing the exact same thing. A lot of organizations are jumping in because it's the new shiny thing in the market without really understanding how this is going to help me. What is the outcome I'm looking for? So I'm really glad that not only Lightcast is providing the necessary data set to enable that skills based transformation, you are also helping them with their whole business case, the services, or understanding the business problem they can solve and guide, be a guide. You work with multiple HR tech vendors, including Success Factors. So let's talk a bit about that, with especially with Success Factors. And Jason, Lightcast is one of our key certified open skill ecosystem partner, and your solution is now available on the SAP store and it's integrated with Success Factor Talent Intelligence Hub. But if you can break down how that integration actually works, how have you seen working with Success Factors customers and Lightcast?
Before I get into that, let me just highlight, you know, Rinky, as you can imagine, we have partnerships with other HCMs outside of SAP. And what I like about the approach that SAP took with Talent Intelligence Hub is they've given the opportunity for the customer to define key characteristics that are important to them and associate those characteristics to the skills data that they can use to help drive change within the organization. That
Uh-huh.
flexibility offers your customers a lot more bang for their buck around
Mhm.
how we can deliver really interesting skill insights into the application, and then how the application can surface and use that intelligence to drive the business outcomes that Janice was saying. So
Mhm.
before we get into the integration nuts and bolts, I think it's important to
Yeah.
just point out that there's a
Yeah.
lot more flexibility that SAP customers have in
Uh-huh.
defining and literally labeling how skills are inputted into the system. And that additional flexibility is really useful when we prioritize what is the actual business problem that the organization is trying to solve for.
Yeah. And if I can ask just a follow-up question on that, and I think Janice was talking a bit about it. The way I see, not only your market-driven skills data that enrich the customer's job profile, you not only help with the foundation pieces. I believe this is going to be an ongoing effort, right? I mean, this is what I tell my customers when they say, "Okay, can I just buy skills ontology from a provider and be done with it?" No, that's
But the challenge, creating a skill profile for a role is not a complicated thing. Maintaining it over time and providing a customer visibility into what they don't know about a specific role is really where Lightcast shines. We did some research. Actually, we just redid it again in 2026, Rinky, where we're looking at critical roles like around technology, artificial intelligence, and a few key sectors. And we're monitoring how the general skill profile for those roles is changing year over year.
uh-huh,
And what we found is in a 36-month period, highly technical roles saw the skill composition of that role
uh-huh.
change up to 75% within a 3-year period,
Wow.
meaning 75% of the skills that are now important for that role were not even associated to that role 3 years ago. And to,
Uh-huh,
to Janice's point, the problem that employers are facing, if I could simplify it, is work is transforming faster than they can prepare for it,
uh-huh,
faster than any of us can prepare for it. And
uh-huh,
the opportunity with Lightcast is because we are monitoring this information at such a global scale, right?
uh-huh,
3.5 billion current and historic job postings, 18 billion government labor market data points, 1.1 billion worker profiles, 10 million company dossiers. We're updating that data set on a daily basis. And then we're updating the data systems, the taxonomies that we use to label work for
uh-huh.
titles and skills, et cetera, on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Because we know that things are changing so often that our customers are looking to us to understand what's around the corner.
Uh-huh.
And unless you're looking at this data at the scale that we offer, you're going to have limited insights or insights that are specific to an individual function or domain within work. And you're not going to be able to help the organization understand how to transform roles across the entirety of their workforce.
Yeah. So to summarize that, so when the customers work with you, not only they are getting those industry specific skills data or job profile data or skills are assigned to job, they're getting a skills ontology, which is more dynamic because the way you're scraping the labor market, the job boards, you
Yeah.
were updating that on a monthly basis, which is important because the way the market is changing, there were some skills that was even unheard of like 5 years back. Let's talk a bit about benchmarking. I think you had mentioned that at the beginning. I believe you mentioned you have a co-pilot or a agent. How are customers using that solution to benchmark skills externally against the market or versus internally?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that we allow the customers to do it. And just really quickly, just to level set for the audience, right? Lightcast has a skill taxonomy that organizes 35,000 skills, defines them into types like hard skills, soft skills, licenses, and certifications, and then organizes them into subcategories and categories, right? That's what's updated monthly. But to your point, Rinky, the ontology, which Lightcast defines as the dynamic relationship between the importance of a skill and a role, that's updated every single day. From a benchmarking perspective, because we organize people and jobs data across a series of the same labels, skills, titles, companies, roles, etc. It gives our customers the opportunity to do a couple of things. And I think Janice can highlight this as well. A lot of times, Rinky, when we get into an engagement with a customer and we're
Mhm,
going to do, sort of basic, fundamental skill to role mapping, you would think that the data that they're going to give us as the foundation for that analysis is what's in SAP and is their job profile data. Most of the time, it's not, Rinky. The data that's in SAP, it's either out of date according to their own definition, or it's not an accurate description of like what work is happening relative to that role right now.
mhm,
And so part of the initial engagement is essentially just really data cleanup. We're getting a variety of competency frameworks and additional data sets that the organization just bestows upon Lightcast. And we sort of organize that using the taxonomies and ontologies that Lightcast is known for to
mhm.
give them a clean response to what they've offered to Lightcast. But as you know, even what they think is there is not going to provide the actual comprehensive skill profile that they want, which is where the benchmarking capabilities come into play.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
Lightcast, we allow our customers to benchmark their data against a collection of employers or a single employer in industry specific. So we have an industry taxonomy that is again labeled across all of our data so
Mhm,
that they can actually understand, even after they've prioritized skills for a given role, well, how does that compare to their own historic job content? How does that compare to a collection of competitors that they admire? The other thing, too, around benchmarking is organizations are not a single industry anymore, meaning like a specific domain in the organization might want to benchmark themselves against some other industry or a collection of employers that they don't actually compete with, but they know that functionally that employer hires the best talent for those roles. So we give them that flexibility to have custom benchmarks across the different functions in the organization so that
mhm.
everyone can have a unique flavor of within technology. Maybe we don't compete with Netflix, but I want to understand how our engineering profiles
Yeah.
compare to theirs.
Yeah.
And then I would say on a pragmatic day-to-day basis of how clients use that benchmarking data, you see a lot of emphasis on really staying current on skills in your technology organization, whether that is A, understanding what new job families are surfacing, uh, what skills are surfacing and what skills are expiring so that you can properly upskill and hire. They're using this data really to help them, as I said, orchestrate the talent within their, in this case, technology organizations to understand, do they have the right profile, the right skill profile? Are they developing the right skills within their technology organization? And are they hiring the right skills? And by seeing in the skill agent that's in one of our products, Talent Transform, they can easily see which skills are trending upwards, which skills are staying steady, and which skills are declining. Because if you think about that research that Jason mentioned,
Mhm.
The shelf life of skills may only be 3 years in
I know.
some of
Yeah.
high tech areas. And so that means that the person you hire today, if
Mhm.
they're not constantly upskilling, their value will decline in a 3 to 4 year period of time. And you need to have intelligence on not only the skills that they're bringing to you, but the skills that they are developing and how quickly they're developing those skills to understand if you're maintaining value with that employee base.
Yeah, that's amazing. That whole benchmarking aspect is not just important for internal mobility, it's also important for workforce planning, right? That's one of the key use cases. And then overall, it helps you with your attrition because if you benchmark with the right skill set, the constant upskilling you talked about, then you don't lose your top skills or top performers to your competitors. So just one last question on the technical aspect of your core capabilities, Jason, if I can ask you. I know you have certified integrations not only with us, but some of the other leading HR platforms or vendors. So is it like a productized integration, API based? What I'm trying to ask is how much customization do customers require, or you can just plug in on day one?
Yeah, no, you can't plug in as much as I would like to say that you can't plug it on for a variety of reasons. And of course, you on the product development side for TI Hub understand this too. So this is the perfect opportunity to talk about the strategic partnership that Lightcast has with Talent Team. I
Yes.
know you reviewed that team on a different episode, but Lightcast has partnered with Talent Team for the last several years.
Mhm.
Initially, before we entered the SAP ecosystem as a marketplace partner, Talent Talent Team was building solutions on the SAP architecture stack that leveraged a lot of the Lightcast data. So, as you know, Rinky, they built an LXP that sits on top of the SAP stack that they sell to SAP customers. From a talent transform perspective, which is the product that integrates with TI Hub, Talent Team does two things on behalf of Lightcast. One, they actually maintain the piping and the plumbing within the integration. And to your point, it's API based and file based
Yes.
because both elements are necessary to support an integration within Talent Intelligence Hub. But the second thing that I think really does help a lot of our deployments is every single one of our deliveries includes a configuration of TI Hub. In our experience up until now, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I hope this happens soon. But in our deployments, all of our customers, we've needed to do additional configuration work just to make sure that TI Hub is set up properly to deliver the experience and the expectations that the customer has. And the fact that we can rely on, a very specific SI who knows the talent products at SAP as well as Talent Team does helps elevate the importance and the impact of our integration into the
Sandeep was in my podcast and he did talk about this aspect. So it's really good to see, you all compete in one aspect, but then you are also partnering or complement each other. So that's really beautiful. Let's talk about some of the success stories, your customer stories. If you want to give one or two examples where customers has benefited from the Lightcast skills intelligence, the workforce transformation services that Janice, you and your team is doing.
So for SAP, one of our initial customers, actually, it's a very large manufacturing company, has about 100,000 employees today. And I think this really speaks to our approach in a couple of ways. One, this organization is planning to double its headcount from 100,000 to 200,000 over the next 5 years. That growth is happening in one of two key ways. One, they have aggressive hiring plans globally. On top of that, they have very aggressive M&A strategy. So they're acquiring a lot of businesses as well. In the acquisition, on average, every year, there's like 300 new roles that are introduced to their job architecture that weren't a part of the organization prior to the acquisition. So while this is really just at its core, helping us understand and prioritize the core and critical skills for every role within the organization, there is a level of significant transformation and change that is happening at this organization at tremendous scale. Doubling a workforce in 5 years that is 100,000 people is not something that the organization enters into lightly, which
Mhm.
is really why they've invested in Lightcast for two things. One, the data to drive the transformation, and two, the services and expertise coming from Janice and her team to help them understand what good looks like, help them avoid barriers and pitfalls that many other organizations have experienced in delivering transformation at this scale. So I want to pass it over to Janice and let her talk a little bit more about kind of what this type of transformation looks like from a service perspective as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. What we're saying is usually clients have 2 reasons that they decide to start a skills journey. They either start from what I call a talent engagement
Mhm,
perspective,
mhm.
usually focused on solving the problem of retention and employee engagement with a focus on career development, wanting to implement a talent marketplace,
Right.
right? And where we come in is to make sure that they understand, is that the real opportunity and the real problem? And if so, how do we help them articulate what that value is going to look like at the end and how they're going to measure that value? And then help them do a real deep uh, diagnosis into looking at how they're going to use skills data throughout their entire talent life cycle, where they have gaps today, where they have opportunities, and where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. And then how does that fit into their overarching technology ecosystem? The final thing we do is to help them with the change management because usually, while people are so focused on the technology and data, the technology and data is solvable.
Mhm. Yeah,
The mindset
yeah,
shift that needs to occur
yeah.
is much more challenging, and
Management.
you need real strategies to help people with that, and I'd like to talk about activating change versus managing change, because I don't think any of us really manage it. We navigate it and we activate it. So that's one piece. The other piece, for those organizations that are a little bit more strategic and more progressive, they attack this from a business transformation perspective. And it could be business transformation related to AI, or it could be business transformation because they're seeing that they're declining in the market in terms of their share and their revenue. And they really need to pinpoint the skills that are going to help them increase revenue by gaining more clients, and we're doing a heavy lift on helping them to understand their sales force. But again, always with an understanding of how are we going to measure success at the end of the day and how are we going to demonstrate value. And then there's one third thing that we don't talk about, but I like to talk about this because, as I said, I'm a skills enthusiast, and it's not just because of the business, it's also there's a humanitarian component to this, and
Yes.
that is a sustainability
Mhm,
approach.
mhm,
Talent sustainability. The reality is, whether we like it or not, most of us are going to have 60-year careers.
mhm.
And if you don't believe it, because usually when I say that, people are like, I'm not going to be working until I'm almost 80 years
Right.
old.
Mhm.
But I just asked you to look, if you're in the US, at our last president and our current president, and you will see that people do work that
Yeah,
long.
they do. Yeah,
And if you look at our Senate or Congress, you'll see that that's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
And so, if people are going to be in the workforce for 60 years, and
Mhm.
we know skills are changing rapidly, we owe it to our employees, we owe it to society to help them understand their skill portfolio, understand how to activate that and keep it fresh so that they have talent sustainability and they have economic leverage. Because at the end of the day, Lightcast is all about labor and workforce data and economic empowerment. And that's an area that I'm seeing more clients start to focus on, is kind of this sustainability
Yeah,
effort.
100%. And thanks for that insight, Janice, because I know a lot of my listeners who are customers from the Success Factors ecosystem. I am hoping they're listening to this because when we think about Lightcast, a lot of times they think you are just a technology provider, but your workforce transformation efforts, what you just talked about, that's golden. And I talk a lot about, I mean, becoming a skills-based organization or skills-based transformation is not a technology project, or it's not only an HR initiative, it's the enterprise-wide business strategy. So I really love each word you said. I was just jumping with joy. I can't do that here, but I love that.
Thank
Let's talk a bit about your roadmap, your future vision, looking ahead. What's next for Lightcast?
Yeah. Let me jump in, and I'm sure Janice has some thoughts. But before we talk about what's next, there's a couple things that Janice said that I just want to highlight because it's probably worth just sharing for the listeners. And obviously, Rinky, in the topic of this particular conversation, we've been talking about Lightcast from the perspective of how we serve employers. But for the audience, it's probably worth pointing out that Lightcast is a large organization that serves
Mhm,
over 1,000 universities, works with over 1,000 economic development and workforce investment boards. And in all of those scenarios, we're providing this skills intelligence to each aspect of the individual career life cycle so that educators understand what skills employers need. And they can offer those skills as a part of their curriculum to make sure that their students are graduating with the experience they need to find work. We're providing visibility in the workforce level at the region level so that they understand the strengths and weaknesses of their local regional workforce. From a
mhm,
strengths perspective, they use it to court businesses to create new job opportunities in their backyard. From a weakness perspective, we're highlighting what programs and what skills they need to offer their citizens so that those individuals have access to the education that's going to allow them to change the outcome
mhm,
positively of their career trajectory. And so Lightcast is really at the epicenter of sort of people learning and how that learning does materially change someone's earning
yeah,
capability.
yeah,
And I think a lot of times when people talk to Lightcast, they're talking to kind of one segment of the business. And we lose the opportunity to demonstrate that Lightcast, different from a lot of other organizations, is serving that entire value chain because when you think about it, all three of these groups play a really critical role in transforming the workforce to be prepared to have the right skills that they're going to need in order to be successful in the future. That aside, let's talk about roadmap.
yeah.
So, actually, I have some questions for you too, Rinky, because I think it would be useful. As you can imagine, the skills conversation is now kind of giving way to a better understanding of what is the context or the way in which a skill is applied uniquely to a
Mhm,
given role. And of course, what I'm starting to describe is a task, right?
right.
How
Yeah,
a
yeah.
skill is applied to a role. And so MyCast has been working with our customers internally and developing new data sets
Mhm,
to roll out what we're calling a knowledge graph in the
mhm,
very near future, which is
mhm,
going to map our skills to a custom task taxonomy that
mhm,
LightCast is going to build and deploy at global scale.
mhm,
That task intelligence is really necessary because organizations, as you can imagine, are trying to understand at the task level, how is
mhm.
that task going to be disrupted, or will it be disrupted by specific technologies, and to what extent and what percentage? So understanding as I start to transform work at the task level, what critical role does technology play in that transformation? So
Yeah.
we're going to be surfacing that intelligence to customers in the very near future.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, you are going to make a lot of customers happy because I talk to a lot of customers in this talent intelligence space, and task intelligence is a subset of this whole
Yes.
work intelligence is something what a lot of them are asking for right now. So
Yeah.
when you have that roadmap planned out, would love to talk to you again in this podcast.
It's
What do you
funny
want?
because I was talking to an SAP customer earlier today, and
Yes.
we're going to do an AI impact analysis on the
Okay.
HR function within their workforce to identify the AI impact across skills within this subdomain.
I love it. Love it.
And in
Yeah.
conversations with our integration partner, I was just sort of trying to understand to what extent is
Hmm.
this information going to be leveraged by Talent Intelligence Hub. And so I was curious from your perspective, from a TI Hub perspective, where is SAP going around when providers like Lightcast begin to
Yeah.
offer this intelligence? How is that going to materially change the impact or the way that your your customers use TI Hub.
Like you about task intelligence and work intelligence. So we are already thinking how to make space for that data set and how to integrate with partners. So very soon, I think we would also share our strategy around how do we consume that data. But yes, we know, we are aware, because that's where the skills-based transformation is evolving. Some closing thoughts. I know we can talk about this topic forever, but Janice, I will start with you. Given your experience and your expertise, how do you see the future of skills in the HR tech space, and what role you think Lightcast or your transformation team will play in that evolution?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I'd like to just declare skills is here to stay. It's not going away. It's not a trend. So people can dispel themselves of that notion. I think we've seen an evolution on this topic of skills starting around 2021, both research from Deloitte and all of the great research that the World Economic Forum does on both talent shortages and skills. But back then, it was still very conceptual,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
I would say about 2.5 years ago, we started to see momentum around this skills effort of people beginning to really embed skills data into their learning practices, their hiring practices, even some of their talent management practices. But still, the focus has been on skills data, and a lot of the focus has been on inferred skills. What we're beginning to see is this movement from inferred skills to evidence based skills around your proficiency and around kind of the precision at which you need to understand proficiency of skills. There's an opportunity both for Lightcast because we do a lot of work on proficiency to start benchmarking that much more closely. But we're also seeing in the marketplace experimentation with proficiency standards
mhm.
that will go across industries. And so that'll be interesting with AI and with the data that we're all collecting, how far down that path we go. Jason mentioned this whole movement towards tasks, and there are people who believe it's either tasks or skills. They go together.
Right.
You can't separate them, but you're
Yeah.
gonna start seeing that those data sets come together. And then finally, I think you're going to see skills treated not just as a framework or data, but skills really helping with workforce orchestration become the currency of workforce orchestration so that people can make more data driven decisions, more equitable decisions about how they deploy their talent, about how they mobilize and bring in talent, upskill talent, and just the whole kind of demographic. I don't mean physical
Right. Right.
demographics,
Yeah.
but the skill demographic profile of the talent in their organization to achieve their business objectives.
That's a great insight, Janice, and I appreciate your time to come and share about Lightcast and the work you are doing. And Jason, I'm going to ping you whenever your task intelligence is ready. I want to bring you again and talk about that. Thanks for your time, and it was lovely to host you both today.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Stay golden. Stay curious. Bye.